We've been warning on the program for a while that Democrats risk irrelevancy. And this week proved them irrelevant. Chuck Schumer could have held his entire caucus together and actually gotten something from Republicans. He couldn't do that. The phrase, "what would Bill Maher say?" could and should serve as a roadmap for Democrats out of the wilderness. Will they take it? For that, we begin with an incredible panel. Anna Kasparian, host of The Young Turks, former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner, both we are lucky to have. Anna, going to start with you.
In the evolving battlefield of American politics, few figures stir the pot quite like Bill Maher. Known for his sharp tongue and unapologetic critiques, Maher has increasingly set his sights on the Democratic Party, specifically calling out Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and his fellow Democrats for what he sees as their slide into cultural extremism and political irrelevance. As Schumer struggles to unify his caucus and extract meaningful concessions from Republicans, Maher's commentary underscores a growing sentiment that the Democratic Party has drifted away from its working-class roots, choosing instead to champion progressive cultural causes that alienate much of Middle America. This episode of Political Introspection unfolds as voices from both the left and the right question whether the Democrats' current strategy is sustainable. Are they, as Maher argues, losing touch with the everyday concerns of average Americans in favor of appeasing elite credentialed progressives? Or is the critique itself missing the bigger picture of economic disillusionment and systemic neglect faced by voters across the country? As Maher and Schumer embody two sides of this debate, the conversation forces an uncomfortable yet vital question. Can Democrats reclaim their relevance without recentering the economic struggles of the people who once formed the backbone of their party?
What would Bill Maher say? Good organizing principle or not?
I think he's right on some of the cultural stances that the Democratic Party has decided to lean into, some of the more extreme ideas, including, some of the policies that they want to champion in regard to transgender women in, sex-segregated spaces, pretending as though they don't know the difference between gender and sex, which are obviously two different things. Biology does matter. At the same time, I think that the framing of this conversation is incorrect and actually incredibly frustrating, because what the Democratic Party has been doing incorrectly for a long time now is they have become increasingly the pro-corporate party that really has nothing to offer to the American people. They used to want to champion better health care. They've moved off that message, and instead they've leaned into more extreme cultural matters that turn a lot of Americans off, and they continue to double down on those stances. So either they're going to listen to their base and what their base wants, or they're going to continue doubling down on the wrong policies. And I'm going
to bring you in here in a minute, but I think you bring up a really important point about their base. Because their base used to be working-class, paycheck-to-paycheck voters, white union men. Have they left their base, or has their base left them, and their base, the Democratic base, is now credentialed progressive elitists who care about cultural issues, not about the economy?
All right, let's talk about this whole idea floating around that Democrats are risking irrelevance. And honestly, from where I'm sitting, it's not just a talking point. It's starting to feel like reality. Think about it. The Democrats control the Senate, but even then, they can't seem to hold their own people together. Chuck Schumer, who's supposed to be the quarterback here, can't keep his caucus unified long enough to score any real wins against the Republicans. It's like having the ball at the 1-yard line and fumbling every time. But here's the thing. This isn't just about a few missed votes or failed negotiations. That surface level dysfunction points to something deeper and way more concerning. It feels like the party is suffering from an identity crisis. Are they the party of working-class voters fighting for better wages and health care? Or are they the party hyper-focused on niche cultural battles that leave a big chunk of their old base scratching their heads? And look, voters notice when you don't seem to stand for anything clear. They see the infighting, the lack of backbone when it comes to confronting Republicans, and the constant back and forth on policy priorities. That sends a message. If the Democrats can't even manage their own house, why should anyone trust them to run the country? As a viewer, it's exhausting to watch. And as a vlogger, I'm telling you, When a party loses the plot like this, they risk something worse than just losing elections. They risk becoming irrelevant in the conversation entirely.
I think what's happened in this past election, the presidential election in particular, is the working class Americans who typically would vote for the Democratic Party either switch sides and cast their ballots for Donald Trump, or they sat the election out entirely. And I have yet to see any real self-reflection from the Democratic machine, the Democratic establishment.
None.
Democratic
Agreed. I got to bring Nina in here, though, in a second. That the person who typically has been the idea, the encapsulation of the working class champion, is Bernie Sanders, right? He's a Democratic socialist from Vermont. He and AOC are going to now barnstorm through red districts in red states in America. That's the latest plan. When you respond to one of Bernie's events, you get an email saying, thank you for responding. Here's your invitation to come. And it tells people to wear masks for outdoor events. It still does that. That's not where working class Americans who are in factories and in hospitals and who are driving Ubers are right now, Nina. It's completely buying into the same progressive elite that Anna's talking about.
I want to expand what we mean by working class. We should be talking about working class people from all identities, because the last time I checked, there are working class people from all identities. Now, Bill Maher, we should not be, God bless him and his success and all of that, but we shouldn't be taking advice from Bill Maher. He's not out in the streets talking to the big mamas and the big papas across this country. When Norfolk Southern, by way of example, poisoned, you remember East Palestine, Ohio.
Sure, we were there.
Overwhelmingly white working class. I went there. And you know what their biggest surprise was? Not that I'm African American, is obvious, and that community is majority white working class. It was just that a Democrat came to see about them. And when I talk to those people, though, and shame on the women of The View who basically said they got what they deserved because they voted for Donald Trump in a previous election, that is wrong all day long, and I admonish them for that. I think it was Joy Behar to be. But I'm using this as an example because in their pain, they were not asking for less government. They wanted more government. They wanted the government to step up and punish Norfolk and restore their community. The reason why I'm saying that we should not be listening to Bill Maher is because he's not out in the streets among the people.
So here's something that caught my eye. Bernie Sanders and AOC taking their message straight into red America. They're going into these districts where, frankly, Democrats haven't had a strong foothold in years, trying to rekindle that old connection with working-class voters. Now, on paper, this sounds smart, right? Get back to basics. Talk kitchen, table issues. But here's the catch. It's not just about what they're saying. It's about what they're saying. It's about how they're showing up. Case in point, they're still sending out emails asking people to wear masks at outdoor events. Whether you agree or not with the caution, the optics here matter. Working class folks, many of whom worked through the entire pandemic in factories, driving Ubers, running small businesses, don't relate to that level of restriction anymore. It feels disconnected from their reality. So while Bernie and AOC are trying to talk the talk on wages, healthcare, unions, which resonates, little signals like this give off elite bubbled energy. And if you're trying to win over skeptical, economically struggling voters, those small things add up. It's like they're almost speaking two different languages. Now, shifting gears to Bill Maher, the guy who's made a career out of poking holes in liberal orthodoxy. Some people on the panel are nodding along with Maher when he says Democrats are too obsessed with cultural battles, turning off regular folks. And yeah, there's a grain of truth there, but others are pushing back, and I get where they're coming from. Because here's the thing, Maher isn't exactly out there in small-town America talking to the folks who can't afford a $500 emergency. He's speaking from a studio surrounded by celebrities and intellectuals. So when he talks about what the people want, how much of that is filtered through his own lens? A lens shaped by privilege and distance from the very people he's diagnosing. The critique is valid. Democrats need to stop prioritizing Twitter battles over tangible policy wins. But Maher might not be the best compass. Instead, maybe the party should spend more time listening directly to voters in struggling communities rather than pundits telling them what those voters think. All right, folks, that's it for today's breakdown. If you found this perspective valuable or it got you thinking, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I've got plenty more deep dives, real talk, and unapologetic analysis coming your way. And hey, drop a comment below.
I want to hear your take. Are Democrats missing the mark, or is the media just framing it that way? Thanks for watching, and as always, stay sharp, stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next one.